okay?
Good job, Pete. Just keep going.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, guys, listen. Hang tight. Go ahead and mute yourself here in a second, and like I said, a little after 9, a few minutes after, we'll come to you guys. I need to hear myself talk for like 3 or 4 minutes.
Cool. Yeah.
But who doesn't?
I know, right? All right, guys, hang tight. Go ahead and mute yourselves.
All right.
Got it.
Thanks, guys. Do-do-do. All right, guys, it is 9 o'clock. It is time to roll. Hello, welcome to U.S. Rugby Happy Hour Live. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We start these shows somewhat early just to get people to start joining the room. Some days we have plenty. Some days we have a few. It does not matter. It's all about the game. It's all about having a great time. The game. It is about the game. It's all about all this, man. It's a great night. It's a great chance to talk about rugby, and we have some great people lined up tonight. Happy Hour Live, it brings you interviews with some of the biggest names in the U.S. rugby scene, and tonight is no different. In a few minutes leading up the show, we have 2 leaders of the Georgia Rugby Union in the U.S., of course, and we'll explain what that means a little bit later. These 2 are going to come on to talk about their connection with the other Georgia Rugby Union, located somewhere between the Black and Caspian Seas. And then later, Alice Goff joins us to talk about college rugby. So like I said, another packed show of rugby gold. If you are listening in on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, you can leave comments or questions in those chats, or join us over here on the Twitter mobile app, and you can ask questions of your own, very much like a call-in radio show. You can ask our guests or myself and my co-host, John Fitzpatrick, Rugby Morning, questions as well. Just look for the links on Eagles Overseas and Rugby Morning. If you're not already following us, please do so at Eagles Overseas and Rugby Morning to get updates on future shows and news about USA Rugby, Major League Rugby, and much more. I am Bill Baker of Eagles Overseas, and I think he's here, is my co-host, John Fitzpatrick from Rugby Morning. Hey, Fitz, are you there?
Hey, Bill, I'm impressed with your geography knowledge. I didn't know that you knew that Georgia was between the Black and Caspian Sea. I'm impressed.
I spent about 3.5 minutes on Google.
I had to look it up, too.
I had an idea. I had a slight idea where it was, but was not even close, actually.
I'm looking at a map here, but I don't see Atlanta.
That's easy. We should all know where that is. It's somewhere between Lake Lanier and the Gulf Coast. How about that? So guys, so Fitz and I are going to talk for about 3.5 seconds here. Did you see the blue moon tonight? Did you get out there and see the full moon?
I'm drinking a blue moon.
Well, that counts. So my wife and I ran down there at like 8:30 to the beach, and I live about a mile from the Atlantic. Not necessarily beach property, but enough where we may be underwater in about 50 years. But we went down to see it. It was stuck behind clouds for half the time, and I was like, I see the top of it. Honey, I have to get home. We have a show. So in 2037, I will see that moon again. Just put in the calendar. Otherwise, hey, did you see the Free Jacks, their note today? Did you see their social media post about SeatGeek?
Yeah, tell me about it. You're a Free Jacks season ticket holder.
I am, man. I'm up here. You know what? I don't know how. I love the idea that they're stepping up. They're using like a ticket agency, but at the same time, I'm worried, man. The whole Ticketmaster, Live Nation, the fees involved with SeatGeek and stuff is a turnoff to me. You know, I felt the way they were doing it just was fine. However, we were literally communicating with someone in the office to buy the tickets as far as season ticket goes. So I know this streamlines it, makes it easier for them. But as a fan, as a ticket buyer, I'm a little worried about the fees. I mean, I don't know if SeatGeek's that way. What's Old Glory doing? The same thing?
You know, these days, man, everyone's got a ticketing platform. You know, I'm used to just rolling up and buying tickets from a guy with a trench coat. You know what I mean? In the good old days.
And some speakers out of the back of a van.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nice. All right, we'll keep it going that way. And finally, before we get to our first guest, I'm going to bring it down for a second. Some of you might have read the news about an hour or so ago. We here at USA Rugby Happy Hour Live, Eagles Overseas Rugby Morning, want to take a moment to express our sadness about the passing of Toronto Arrows president and general partner Bill Webb today. Bill was widely known as like the father of the Toronto Arrows and much more. You know, myself and I'm speaking for Fitzy as well. We want to give him our condolences. Give it to the Arrows and the Webb family. And to quote Brian Ray, I think many of us know who Brian Ray is. Bill had an infectious enthusiasm for the game and never wavered in his optimism for Canadian rugby. So, everyone speaks very highly of Bill and his impact on the game, not just in Canada but North America. So, listeners, if you want to contribute in his honor, visit the Toronto Arrows website or social media channels for the links to do so. They have a lot of places you can donate in his honor, many different places. So, here, if you have a glass, go ahead and raise it to Bill Webb, and we'll give him some cheers right now. Here's the Bill Webb. All right, guys, let's move it on. Let's get right into it. Our two guests are here. Our first two guests are here. I didn't come up with anything witty for them because I have some history with one of these guys, and I feel like I might implicate him in some bad things. So I won't go there. So let's all say hello to the USA Georgia Rugby Union Secretary Travis Spencer and Vice President of the Union Pete Redmond. Travis, Pete, how are you guys?
Doing great, man.
Good. Travis, you there?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes, yeah, doing well.
I know.
Thanks for having us on.
I know.
Come on, Travis.
Pete's been giving you a hard time about living in the woods of Macon, and you're here. You were on here first, man.
Yeah.
So
It's a small fishing village, and
it's not even on the water. What are you talking about?
I didn't say it was a successful fishing village. Yeah.
I had to walk down to City Hall to get internet access. So we're good.
Dial up.
Yeah.
So anyway, guys, welcome back to the States. A bit jet lag still?
Finally getting over it. It's taken quite some adjustment.
Yeah, I'm an old man. I'm not quite ready yet. I'm still getting 5 in the morning. So
very nice. And for you, those of you tuning in right now who don't know what we're talking about, we will get more into that right now. And actually, let's just jump back into it, okay? Sorry, I just ate a potato chip and it went down the wrong pipe. Let's talk about both your backgrounds. We don't usually have on guests from certain rugby unions in the country, which we need to do more of. And it's an amazing story, which is the reason why we have you both on tonight. Let's talk about your backgrounds. Let's talk a little bit more about your rugby experience, how you got into the game, and maybe what your roles are with the union. So with that said, let's start with you, Travis. Tell us about your background.
Yeah, great. I have been involved with rugby for about 15 years. I started playing in college at University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, and then actually got to spend a year in New Zealand after that. Just went over and played some club rugby, worked in a bar, kind of took a year off. It was blast, excellent experience over there. And then came back and have been playing club rugby. And as I've grown, gotten a little older, I've gotten involved in club leadership. And now for the past 3 years, I've been in union leadership here in Georgia. I'm the secretary, so officially I'm responsible for keeping all the notes and running all the meetings. But we're a small group and we've got ambitious goals. So all of us have extra projects going at all times. So we're all involved in growing the game in the state of Georgia.
Great. And Pete?
I started at Georgia Tech back in the Stone Age. I was a very terrible football player in high school and couldn't get out of my own way, so I decided rugby would be the best option because you got to drink after practice, which is always nice. I was, bounced between injuries and rarely seeing the pitch. But then when I got out of Tech, I started to play in Augusta, and that's where, I really got bitten by the rugby bug. And I moved over to coaching because the surgeries were getting too expensive. And Sean Elms, one of the guys who coached in Augusta, convinced me to coach high school rugby, and I loved coaching. Just the getting everybody pointed in the right direction, working with the young guys, and we coached at an inner city school, and seeing the changes that rugby could help make in their lives was really significant. And since then, I've just stayed coaching the Augusta rugby men. I coached the women, and I also coached Rugby South, and now I'm working with the GRU Barbarians.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about the Barbarians a little bit later in the show, but and this next comment's really for Fitzy. Pete and I actually played a small bit of rugby together in Georgia. Did we play in the same Georgia games team, or was that another year there, Peter?
Was that tens?
Yes, it was tens. It was an old college teammate of mine, Mike Perkins, was on there, and I was playing for Old White at the time, and I came down and joined you guys for a bit because for some reason we didn't have a team in the Georgia games. So one of the things, guys, listeners, Georgia does really well. They have a thing called the Georgia Games. I don't know if that still goes on or not. Does that still go on, guys?
I haven't heard of it in the last couple of years, but they need to bring it back.
They do. It's very much like an Olympic-style event, all different the games, and they had rugby there, which way before there was rugby sevens in the Olympics. And so we had a great time playing. There would be teams out of Atlanta. They were all like Frenchies. They're supposed to be actually residents of the state, but clearly they were not. But it was a great time. So, guys, I want to get into it. Yeah. So, guys, I want to jump into the main reason why we have you two on, okay? Just this past week, you both, Pete and Travis, you both returned from, I want to say, a rugby ambassadorship trip to the country of Georgia. At the same time when USA was playing Georgia, the Lelos. I think I'm saying that right. And it all began after late last year when they earned their first victory over a Tier 1 country, Wales, back in November 2022. And and then we'll take it from there. I mean, how did you guys? How did the communication begin between the two unions? I understand it was almost like a misunderstanding by fans. Mixing up the two Georgians, almost like a joke, right?
Pete tells this story better than I do, so I'll let him handle this one.
Go on, Pete.
And thanks for noticing, Travis. The president of our union, Steve Mace, was avoiding doing work one Saturday, and he called me and said, "Why is our Facebook page blowing up?" And the Georgia Rugby Union Facebook page was not the most heavily trafficked of Facebook pages. That might surprise you. But lots of people named Jones and Llewellyn and Leek Muncher and various other odd things were congratulating us. And I checked, and they were all Welsh. And I looked at the fall friendlies, and Wales had just been beaten by Georgia. And fair play to the Welsh for congratulating the victor, but they're also bad at geography. So they had the wrong Georgia. So our president posted something snarky that will take your congratulations, but you've got the wrong Georgia. And then much derisive laughter. And then USA was eliminated from the possibility of going to World Cup. So Steve Mace posted something saying, Georgia Rugby will throw all their support, all 10 teams will throw all their support behind the Lelos, yay Lelos. And then at Christmas, the vice president of their Georgia Rugby Federation, Nicholas Alavidze, he posted a great video that was him and various other officials, players, coaches, congratulating us or thanking us for our support and wishing us a happy new year. And it ended with the U.S. ambassador wearing a Georgia rugby jersey, Georgia the country rugby jersey, and saying very kind things to us. And I called Steve and the executive folks, Travis, and we said that this is too good to pass up. So I wrote a letter to to the U.S. ambassador and to the Georgian Rugby Federation, saying that we really need to get together to play a match, Georgia versus Georgia, and it sounded like really bad John Lennon lyrics, peace, Durka Durka, hugs, but it worked. And the reason it worked is the Rugby Mafia, the cultural attaché at the U.S. Embassy in Tbilisi, the capital of Georgia, was a former rugby player. And he flagged it and gave it to the ambassador, who thought it was a great idea.
Wow.
And that next week, we were in a Zoom call, Steve Mason and I, and we could tell that this was sort of the sniff test to see if we were complete morons. And we are morons. We are morons, but not complete morons, and different. So the cultural attaché said, great, we're going to kick in money to get the Georgia Barbarians, our team, over to Georgia, the country, to play.
Wow.
And then USA Rugby decided that they had fear of missing out, so they scheduled a match against Georgia this past week. And the Georgians in Tbilisi said, you got to bring a couple of the Georgia Rugby Union boys with you so we can plot and scheme our match.
Wait, Pete, are you claiming that the only reason why USA played Georgia is because of you?
I don't think it's the only reason.
Okay, but, there were other. Okay.
Yeah. But we definitely created some hype, and then they noticed the hype and kind of jumped on it.
Good.
Yeah. And sure enough, we got to go over to Tbilisi with we didn't go with the team, but we stayed in the same hotel. So technically that means we're part of the team, I think.
I think so.
And that's how a bill becomes a law.
Well, Pete, Travis, this is John from Rugby Morning. I'd heard bits and pieces of the story from Bill and others on social over the last few months, and I was like, this is no way. Like, this is ridiculous. But thinking back on when you guys first had that exchange on social media, did you ever wonder like where this was actually going to go?
It's almost overwhelming, like how unbelievable it is. Every time I've told anybody outside of our normal circles the story, it's kind of like that famous Spider-Man meme where there's multiple Spider-Mans just pointing at each other, and it's like Georgia, you're Georgia, we're Georgia. Like that's literally the source of this connection here. But it blossomed into just a real genuine connection, and it's incredible.
But
you always so Bill, 1 second, sorry, Bill.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
You always when I was in high school reading about U.S. history, you eventually got around to like ping pong diplomacy. This is like something much better than that, right? Like rugby diplomacy. You guys are the ambassadors of that, no doubt.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no. And it was so interesting when we were over there. Pete and I didn't fully know what to expect. We'd interacted with several of them already. We knew that they were going to be wonderful people and great hosts.
Yeah. Was that so, Travis or Pete, either one of you? I mean, if you go back to that social greeting, I mean, we've all during our days of playing or being involved in the club side, we thought, you know what, we could totally play, Welsh B-side or something like that. We can totally do this. But it had to have, like, almost hit you in the back of the head when they said, yeah, let's do this. I mean, seriously, were you kicking yourself? Were you, like, calling each other, this is going to happen?
Well, we told ourselves this is not going to happen right up until it did happen. Because just this is such random, the pachinko ball ended up in this hole kind of completely improbably. It's just random that this happened. And the reason that it happened is, someone at the embassy liked rugby, and Nicholas Alavidze, the Georgian vice president, is an evil genius, and he cooked up this whole plan.
Yeah.
So it wasn't our doing.
Yeah.
Now, this wasn't just a few guys with rugby as a similar interest, right? I mean, the U.S. ambassador to Georgia, Kelly Dignan, and you mentioned the Georgia cultural attaché, who is Christopher Alexander. I I mean, they were involved in making this
Chris
happen
Andrews.
too. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, were you surprised by the interest on the political level?
I, I was completely gobsmacked that Georgia, the country was really happy that uh, that we were taking notice because things are a little tense over there these days. Georgia is 20% of their country is occupied by Russia, and Russia seems to have a wild hair
Mm.
up their behinds, and they're occupying their neighbors.
There's a thing going on. Yes.
Yeah, and the U.S. has a very strong defense, military attachment to the country of Georgia, and there's strategic interest in the country of Georgia, but they're trying to firm up sort of the soft power interpersonal relationships, cultural exchanges, and this fit in very neatly with that.
Yeah.
Right, and then you mentioned USA Rugby with the Georgia match. I mean, was there more communication at all with them, or was this more you would do your own thing, and if they wanted to get involved, they did?
Travis, you want
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, it was a little more the latter. In fact, we being in the same hotel, we spoke to several of the coaches and players, and most of them didn't even know we were there.
Oh.
Yeah, so but I mean, they were all equally excited about the story once we told them. Everybody's had the same reaction. It's just such a crazy story. But yeah, it was our coordination was directly with the Georgians. They were our hosts. They took us around and plied us with as much wine and food as we could possibly handle. But yeah, the overlap with the U.S. was just more being in the same place, seeing each other when we could.
And I've got to say that playing us with food and booze, Georgians are renowned for their hospitality. And I said, sure, they're hospitable, but oh my God, no, they are alarmingly generous. Every meal was. I lost count of the courses that were offered, and I'm still full as a tick from eating in Georgia. The food is amazing. The people are so kind. There, lots of toasts, lots of great wine.
Yeah.
And they have this evil beverage called cha-cha, which is sort of like grappa. Imagine grappa crossed with brake fluid. It rounds the corners off a day very nicely. I'll say that about it. But they're so just absolutely gratuitously kind and generous hosts.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a return trip will be planned then.
Oh yeah. Well, this wasn't just a meet and greet social trip. The intention of this was a planning trip to get the GRU Barbarians over there next year. So we're plotting and scheming, and we come up with a plan to get our GRU Barbarians over there to play their Georgia Barbarians, players from various club teams, and to make a weekend of it. Well, probably more than a weekend of it, because they have some cha-cha that needs to be drunk by various American folks.
Yeah.
Hey, Fitz is going to jump in a second, but just a quick note to our listeners: if you are listening in live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, go ahead and drop a message in the chats there. We can get your question online with these guys right now, or join us over here on the mobile Twitter app to ask your own question. If you're in the room right now, go ahead and request in the bottom left of the screen. We'll get you up here right away to ask your own question. Go ahead, Fitzy.
Yeah, obviously with the two Georgias, the overlap there is funny. One of you guys wrote, I think, online, and I'll try and quote it here. Great laughs here in our Georgia, attempting to word things in order not to confuse the two Georgias in releases, but at times it still comes across as quite humorous. How many examples can you guys cite of where you've had to try and explain what is going on between the two Georgias?
I mean, it's been near constant. Anytime anybody hears we're going somewhere, you have to recount that whole story and explain how it started from confused Wales fans.
And, trying to explain to people like my bank that I was going to Georgia, and the bank said, "You're in Georgia." I said, "No, the other Georgia." And, radio silence. I said, "No, there's a country called Georgia." "Where is that?" I said, "It's in the Caucasus." And, it was completely wasted effort. So I said, "Yeah, there's a country called Georgia. You're welcome to look it up." And I'm going there. And, just the profound ignorance of so many Americans about the existence of a country called Georgia is alarming. We need to do a whole lot better off with geography classes in the country of
yeah, for sure.
Unidos.
Hey, our next guest coming up in about 6 minutes I don't know if he's requesting to ask a question now or just getting ready for his half. Alex, if you want to ask a question, you go ahead and unmute. Otherwise, we'll talk to you in 6 minutes. This is the fun thing about this whole Spaces thing. It's like so new to everybody. Hey, Alex.
Yeah, it's definitely new to me. No, I don't have a lot of questions. Although I do love the country Georgia, and if you look up how many times it's been invaded, it's kind of shocking.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Do that. Yeah.
Oh, good call.
Yeah, we spent most of our time in the city of Tbilisi, the capital, and we toured old Tbilisi, and the capital has been sacked like 26 times that they know of.
Is it true that it's overrun by cats?
Cats and dogs, man.
Cats and dogs.
They are the most dog-loving people and cat-loving people that I've run across. Like they were just dogs. They're just kind of hanging out, and they weren't scroungy mutts. There was one dog that was just following us, and we thought he's trying to angle for some grub. No, he just walked right up to the store, and they had a bowl full of water. Then he started drinking, and then just plots. It's not bad to be a dog in Georgia, man.
I was going to be worried about what was on your plate. I'm going to get the steak. What is that? So a couple more questions for you guys. We got a few more minutes for you. So generally speaking, Travis, I'll go with you first. What did you gain this trip? Any insights? What did you learn from the host? I mean, anything about anything you can bring back to Georgia here in the States?
Yeah, sure. There's a couple things. Really, the first thing that Pete and I both noticed was their culture, their rugby culture in particular. It ties into their national culture of that warrior mentality. They have a statue in Tbilisi that's a woman. It's called the Mother of Georgia. In one hand, she has a jar of wine, and the other a sword. And we want to be best friends with you, but if you don't want to be our friends, we will defeat you. And that kind of either or, that super welcoming, but then also just ultimate warrior. That culture is just fits so perfectly with rugby, and a lot of their ethos of their facilities that we got to tour gave us some ideas to bring back for some of our teams over here. The other thing I picked up that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet is I got to talk to their player welfare and social campaigns manager. And we've got big plans to kind of co-promote some projects together, whether they're fundraisers or just social campaigns. He was very excited. He had actually spent some time in the U.S. and was very excited to talk about how we can work together on things like that. So they're currently running an anti-domestic violence campaign, and he's like, you guys can kind of copy some of the same stuff, and we can build each other up and kind of collaborate from across the world. And then the last thing, they were so genuinely excited that we were there. I thought it was going to be a bit of a gimmick. We're obviously a much smaller deal than they are as a country, a national team, but we were at the same table with executives from the Heineken Champions Cup who were there to sign some paperwork with them because one of the club teams from Georgia is about to be in the Challenge Cup. We were honored guests, and they were genuinely very, very happy for us to be there. And I just will never forget that, and just had an absolute blast.
Wow, it's the big meaning of the trips, right? You're learning things and you're working together. It's not just you guys going over there and drinking beer and petting cats. So that's good. But talking about teams, Pete, Trevor, you both mentioned the Georgia Barbarians. So just quickly, let's talk about that team real quick. Pete, you're the director of the Barbarians. Let's talk about the side. Why was it formed? Where do the players come from? Talk about that team.
Well, a couple of years ago, during the before times of the pandemic, the Georgia Rugby Union was sort of limping along. We had 8 or 10 teams, and there were nasty feelings and backbiting and all sorts of just poisonous relationships. And under our new president, Steve Mace, we decided to form. It's a great idea. I'm not sure who had it, so I'll just take credit for it. So I and only me decided to form a barbarian side. You're going to wear the jersey for the Barbarians, but the rest of your strip is your local side. And we wanted to get guys together from different teams to work hard, play higher level rugby, and sort of take it back to their unit. We sort of used a Ranger School approach. Not everybody who goes to Ranger School is going to end up in a Ranger unit. Most of them are going to go back to their unit, but we want to get them exposed to better coaching, more sophisticated offensive and defensive plans, and also play higher level competition. So we entered the Savannah tournament in the elite division, and we lost all our matches, but we played a whole lot better as it got along. You don't get better, you don't get stronger without resistance training, and rugby is the same way.
Right.
And also, the guys went out, in the evening and got, I think, blasted is the word, but they bonded, and it's remarkable how much better the relationships between the clubs in the GRU are because of this. Wouldn't you say, Travis?
Oh, absolutely. And the Savannah tournament is the only actual play that has happened with that team. There's been practices and training sessions since then, but it's completely changing the culture of the union, almost single-handedly.
And you have the second match this weekend in Ontario. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
there's
apparently one of the players wrote me earlier asking you guys who their favorite player is. He wants you to say Preston Thompson. So this is your second match. Now, obviously, you're not going to be hitting the pub the night before the match for this one, right? It gets a little more serious. I'm not taking anything away from the Savannah tournament. I've played in it. Many people played in it. It's a great time. But it's now time, okay, this is what we need to be as Barbarians. We need to improve.
Yes. Yeah. We're playing London St. George, which is a very old style, traditional, British style rugby club. It has a clubhouse. Early in the morning it starts with minis, and it works all the way through to senior men. And it'll be great for our guys to see that aspect of rugby, really club culture. That's one of the best things about rugby. And we're really excited to get the boys up there and show them how rugby can be drastically different than just playing in a soccer, in a differently marked soccer field, and then having Papa John's pizzas and then going home.
Right. All right. So last thing, guys, we'll let you go here in a minute. Barbarians, how can supporters, Georgia, outside of Georgia, everywhere else, how can they support the Barbarians?
Oof.
Is there fundraising involved? Is there like an online kind of donations?
Yeah, there is actually. We have a fundraising website that's called Flip Give that I can send to you if you can share it out.
Absolutely.
And it's ongoing. Obviously, we've been trying to fundraise to supplement expenses for this trip, but we've got more trips planned, including the big one to Georgia next year. So yeah, we will be constantly fundraising to help support the Barbarians.
Well, gentlemen, Travis Spencer, Pete Redmond, both of Georgia Rugby Union, thank you so much for coming on here. And like you just said, look up Flip Give, get on Facebook, wherever else their social media is. Help these guys out. It kind of is still of a kind of like a pay to play situation, like a lot of programs are. And we love seeing these teams popping up, like you guys said, to better the game down in Georgia, especially. But Pete, Travis, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Thank you, and you might want to join us on the trip, don't you think, Bill?
I think we should have a live U.S. Rugby Happy Hour live. What do you think, Fitzy?
Fantastic idea.
In Tbilisi, yes. All right, we'll start doing fundraising, Pete.
Outstanding.
All right.
Awesome.
Gentlemen, seriously, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
All right,
Thanks for having
luck.
us.
Yeah, good luck, guys. All right. A great first 30 minutes with Travis Spencer and Pete Redmond of the Georgia Rugby Union. If you didn't listen to it live, tune in tomorrow to the podcast replay of that. A really cool story about them, the two Georgia Rugby Unions becoming friends, I guess. The country of Georgia and the state of Georgia. Check it out. A really cool story, and I'd love to see more of this happening with other unions. I don't know who else. There's no Utah outside of this country, but still, they got state to lose, right, Fitzy? I think.
There you go.
Yeah. So with that said, man, we got to jump into more American rugby. We got a lot to talk about with our next guest. He's already listening in. He already chatted for a second, so he's ready to go. One of the biggest and most respected names in the North American rugby scene. Let's all welcome Alex Goff. Hey, Alex.
Hey, I just by the way, I'm not a big white wine drinker, and the only kind of white wine that I like to drink is Georgian wine. I have a bottle in my fridge right now.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
And why is it in your fridge? This is called happy hour.
Well, I wanted to be vaguely compass mentis to be able to do this.
Absolutely.
At least a little bit.
Well, besides staring at a fine bottle of white wine in your fridge, what's keeping you busy right now?
Well, spreadsheets. I'm getting ready for the collegiate season in the fall, which means me loading up on massive spreadsheets to see what's going on. And I spent most of today. I like to travel and go to games, but if I travel a long distance to go see one game, that doesn't really,
right.
That's a lot of effort for one game. So I'm like 2, 3. So I was just working on my little plan for a weekend. I'm going to go see both Harvard teams play, and then turn around and on my way back cruise by Iona and potentially see AIC play as well. So a little bit of a Northeast trip, and just load them all up, right? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so I get to go.
Oh, so
what? I do a lot of travel planning.
So the Harvard matches are Friday?
Yeah, so 2 Friday night matches, one after another, the women and the men, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, man, I definitely would have ran. I live about 30 minutes out of Harvard, so north of Boston, so I would have ran down there. However, my daughter is in her senior year of college soccer, and she has a game that night, her first game of the season. So, sorry, buddy, you're lower on the total. So you were talking about you're hitting up a bunch of games. Yeah, you're hitting a bunch of games. Yeah. So generally speaking, you've written about it, whatever else. Too many college leagues, competitions, whatever. So let's get right into it. I was thinking about this earlier. What's the difference between multiple college leagues, let's say, or competitions, and college football conferences? You know what I'm saying? College football, SEC, ACC, Big Ten, whatever else. Is it because there are 7 15s championships and 1 college championship per division?
Yeah, there are some complications within college football that something can be a Division I conference, but it's not as good as the other really good Division I conference. And then of course we're seeing conferences just some ridiculous realignment within there, so they're just as confused. Mm-hmm. But the biggest thing is, and you saw, and I mentioned it in a recent article, 31 national championships, or what somebody can call a national championship. It's pretty silly, right? Yeah. That's pretty dumb. 31. And I realize that we know there's men and women, and there are different divisions, and there's 7s and 15s. So there's going to be a variety. 31 seems to be a little much. Yeah. And So it's confusing, but I will say that if you talk to the average college rugby player, he or she doesn't care.
Right.
You know, that person is like, I don't know, man. I just go to training and I show up on Saturday and play a rugby game.
Yeah.
So that they don't worry about that stuff. And I think a lot of coaches kind of feel the same way if they can. They try to just sort of say, look, hey, the biggest thing that it does is, you know, if you're an NCR team and you want to play against USA Rugby member teams, you're going to have to pay dues to two organizations. So because it costs you another $1,700, and that's annoying. I think that's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
But in the end, I mean, somebody goes, hey, you know, deep pockets guy who helps fund this program, can we have another $2,000 for this? Why? Because, you know, everybody's insane and we've got this stupid thing going on. They're like, all right, fine, I'll write you a check. Done, taken care of. And the rest of it, they don't really worry about other than, you know, show up on Saturday and play.
Huh. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, you know, but
it is.
But I mean, is that kind of such a follow-up with that question?
Yeah.
Do the college players not care enough where maybe because there's 31 championships, you know, they have a better chance of actually winning a title? It doesn't matter who it's against.
Well, yes, they do. And then, you know, look, they run into a thing with me because I sort of go at it from two different directions.
Yeah.
One of the things is, look, if you want me to go, and this is partly what I do when I travel, is you want me to go to a thing and say, hey, these guys love rugby and it's part of their college experience and they're training hard and they're playing hard and we love them for it. Yeah. Like, I'll do that all day. I mean, I don't pretend that I was a particularly good rugby player. I did love playing when I played, and so I'll do that all day. But don't come back and tell me that you're the best in the country when I know you're not.
Oh yeah.
Right. So look, hey, I'll call these guys out. Right. You know, they're going to an Ivy League school. They're set. They're fine. So the guys at Brown, God bless them, they're wonderful. Right. Good for them. They won NCR. That's fine. But then when I go and say, guys, you're not the best in the country, they get a little bit out of shape. And then I go, yeah, okay, but if you rocked up against Lintonwood, what would happen? And they're like, oh, yeah, well,
exactly.
we, you know. So I'm saying, you know, it's one or the other. It's one or the other. You know, and if you just say, we're the best in the NCR and we love it, and I go, great, good for you, you're fantastic.
Yeah.
But don't get upset when I say that the best team in the country is Navy, because the best in the team in the country is Navy.
They are, yes.
Well,
and,
yeah. Well, Alex, let's talk about some of those specific men's and women's college teams or players. I want to start on the men's side. For those who didn't read your recent articles on your rankings, you've kind of tweaked maybe your formula or selection. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. You know, look, back in 2004 was when I first did my college rankings. First time I did them, and it was just a men's college ranking. That was it. It wasn't divided by division or anything like that. So I had a couple of Division II teams in there until I kind of got wise to that. And so over time I do that. And then I had a Division I, Division II, and women's rankings, and I would do all those things. And then we split out. So now we had Division D1A and D1AA. So Division I is in two halves. But you could argue that there's a Division I AA team that could beat a Division IA team. Yeah, sure. And then we've got NCR Division I, which is sort of in the middle. There's some overlap there on both directions. So I tried to rank them. I was really struggling with that. I was struggling because partly I'm trying to then turn around and extract all the D1A teams and say, hey, by the way, this is how I'm voting in the D1A thing. And So I dealt with that. What I did discover was that Division I AA, I think, because of the market forces, because of more school-supported teams and more money behind the stronger club teams, Division I AA, for the vast majority side of it, is just not as strong as D1A. That doesn't mean they're bad. Mm-hmm. They're fantastic. And, I have a friend of mine who just brought his son back from visiting University of Tennessee and just loved it. He loved the college, but he also loved the culture within the rugby team and the coaching and everything's like fantastic. Good for you. I love it. And it's a great team. But week after week after week, then, you put them in a D1A league, they're not going to do so well because they only practice, they may practice 3 times a week rather than 5. They don't have an S&C coach. They don't have a full-time paid coach. All these different little things that happen. And then the last year, Virginia Tech was a D1 AA team that was in the Rugby East, which is everybody else there is either D1A or an NCR top division team. And Virginia Tech was the only D1 AA team in the league, and they lost all their games. Yeah. They went into NCR's D1 AA playoffs and won the whole thing. So I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, all those guys said, look, we learned so much from losing those games. And it's like, absolutely. I embrace it. But what that does tell me is D1 AA is definitely a different animal. Mm-hmm. So I decided separate them out forever. I haven't actually done a preseason ranking for D1 AA yet, but I will. But then I decided I'm going to separate NCR. I'm going to separate D1A. Every week I'll try and rank both of those. And then maybe once a month I'll say, how do they all match together? Because they do sort of come together like you're shuffling cards, a little bit, so they merge.
Well, Alex, as you're looking forward to the fall season and you're plotting your road trip trips, what teams are you most excited to maybe see in person this fall?
Sometimes it's just I'm looking to go to a different region. I haven't been out to Wisconsin much. Last year, I was in Kentucky. Strangely frequently, I was in Kentucky. I don't know how that happened. But my son's a graduate student in Wisconsin, so I'll get out to Wisconsin to go see him. I would very much like to try and find a way to see Army and Navy men. September 8th, I'm going to see both Harvard games, both Harvard teams. And I think one of the things there is Harvard now, their alumni put a ton of money behind their men's program saying, hey, look, Brown's good, Dartmouth's good, we're lagging behind, let's go catch up to them. Colton Cariaga is their new full-time coach. So let's go see them play. Let's go see what he's got them doing. I know early on, but it'll be kind of fun to see that and then say in 2 years go back and see how they are. I would be definitely interested in that. So I'm excited about that. No, aside from that, what the NCR I think has done really, really well is they decided that there are strict standards as to if you're a Division II school, you can't really be a varsity program with certain exceptions. You can't be a massive school. You can't be University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, which wasn't a Division II. But NC State was a Division II school. But you can't be NC State and be Division II. You're too big. So then I'm excited. Hey, look, can I go out and catch? I'll go see IUP or maybe I'll try and catch Marist at some point or something like that. Some of these teams that now have a real shot because they're not running up against these bigger or school-supported teams, and go see them and then hopefully catch them later on in the playoffs as well and see how they develop.
Let me jump in here real quick. I've one of our listeners right now actually sent me a question earlier, and I feel like it's right on what you're saying now. And I invite him up to speak and ask himself if he wants to. I'm not sure if Eric wants to do it, but no worries if he doesn't want to. So I'll start asking. So Eric Bluesky, who's listening right now, is actually a former teammate of mine back in college. His daughter actually plays for Castleton in Maine, and they're a relatively new NCAA varsity program. So he asked, it feels like NERA Division III is struggling in like player recruitment. Obviously D3 has issues with that. But you have like Big Three like Bowdoin, University of New England, Norwich, that type of stuff up in New England, able to play 15s, and then there's Castleton hanging on by the skin of their teeth for 15s. In your opinion, for these Div 3 schools, does like an organization like NERA varsity status with its NCAA recruiting hoops, does it really benefit these programs more than the freedom that club programs have, especially given the greater tendency of schools to not view club rugby as the black sheep of the campus these days? You know what I'm saying? What he was asking? Like, is it beneficial really for them to be a varsity program?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the opportunities for girls in high school to get a little help, a little bump into getting into school. And I tell you, it's harder and harder to get into school every year. Some of the institutions you just mentioned are ridiculously hard to get into.
Yeah.
So it helps a little bit. I think that's great for girls. I think that in my experience, especially, women's club college rugby suffered very much through COVID. And what it showed was just a little poke here and a little poke there, a little problem, and they're in trouble. You also, you'll see, coaches are going into this, and you've got more consistency of coaches. You also get a lot of coaches moving around trying to find the right job, but generally you get more consistency of coaches. Mary Beth Matthews was coach at Bowdoin until she just retired, but she was there for 20 odd years. What a great position. And then Laura Miller goes in, and for Laura, I think that would be what a fantastic place to be if she can handle the winters. I will say it is difficult there's a number of teams that are in NIRA that are in a sort of a developmental stage, and that's okay. It gives them time to build something, and that's all right. And they don't have to win a championship. They don't have to beat Bowdoin, who has dominated Division III. But at some point, Bowdoin won't. Somebody will overhaul them.
Right.
Division II is a nice little division. It's a little small in terms of the teams that can consistently play 15s. But if you look at Division I, you have 11 teams that are actually pretty fantastic. So I support it. I would like to see. I would like to see more people support it, and I think that there are some people who are in a position to support it that don't. I won't name any names, but there are some people who because the thing is in CRAA when they're encouraging Navy to go NCAA, what that means is they lose them as members. USA Rugby essentially loses them as members. But they want that. I mean, that's really good. That's prestigious. That's great. So now we have Army and Navy in there. And if we can go a little west, talking to you, Stanford and UCLA, if you go varsity, Stanford, UCLA, and or Oregon, Central Washington will jump right in because Central Washington is varsity already. We can get ourselves a West Coast varsity program pretty quickly, and then I think the lower divisions will attach onto that. Something you have, Azusa Pacific or Claremont Colleges, where my buddy Evan Wolin has been winning championships down there, and I think that would be fantastic too. So there's a lot of potential, but there is a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. Maybe a kind of a follow-up question to that. So. Right, women's rugby, and I want to make sure I'm characterizing this right. Women's rugby recognized by the NCAA is that emerging sport, right? So it's kind of on its way to becoming fully sanctioned.
Well, It's sanctioned by the NCAA. It's an NCAA sport. The big difference is if once you get to 40 teams, the NCAA then pays for the playoffs. So then suddenly you can have the playoffs wherever you want because the NCAA will pay to fly the teams there and stuff like that. That's essentially the threshold. And right now they're at about 30.
Okay. Do you feel like there's progress getting to 40? I know a few have come online over the last year or so, but given some of the dynamics that's going on in college sports, are they progressing well? Is it tracking well to 40?
They're progressing. I would say they probably added 3 or 4 this year, and I would have liked to have seen them add 10, something like that. So again, I'd like to see that there's got to be some energy on campus. One of the things about like Title IX is it's the students who have to stand up and yell about it and say, hey, you're failing, you're non-compliant in Title IX, but if you sign on the rugby team, by the way, there's 15s rugby and 7s rugby. Those are 2 different sports. So we could have 40 players and you can count them twice and you can get 80 women. Little sneaky things like that. But people have to be aggressive. They have to push for that. So I think, if I'm overseeing that, I'm saying, hey, look, in 2 years we'll get to 40.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we need to do. But then you go back and say, well, which schools are they? Which ones are you going to do? Which ones do you target? Vassar, I think, should go. I mean, honestly, I think Tony at Vassar, I'm calling you out right now. You should go, Naira. Love you, Tony, but you should go back. They should go varsity. Then all the things he's dealing with will probably go away a little bit. So I think that would be great. And if Vassar goes, does Fairfield go? Does Marist go? You look around that little region, and then you suddenly pick up a couple of other places.
I feel like New England could have the next 10 teams. It seems like there's so many colleges, Amherst College, even a couple of D3 programs. It just seems like so many could do it. Yeah,
I know, absolutely. I agree with that completely. It's a very densely New England Northeast.
Yeah.
Eastern upstate New York for sure.
Oh yeah.
Do that.
Yeah, it's not cold in the early spring. Anyway, so
I went to the University of Rochester, so I know a little bit about upstate New York.
It was snow for 9 months of the year.
if it went over 55 degrees, the girls would be out sunbathing in the spring.
Yeah, one of my first matches ever was in Burlington, Vermont, and it was sleet, snow, mud. I think I cut holes in my uniform to get warm, like burrowing into a dead bear to get warm. So, Alex, we only have you for about 4 or 5 minutes here. Let's ask you something also about exposure for the teams. We're seeing more and more programs, utilizing live streams like YouTube, whatever. That can be only good for the program. Are we going to see more of that?
Yeah, I think so. It's pretty easy to do that. What I think we're going to see, and I really hope, a little bit more professionalizing of that, and not just some dude talking. And hey, look, if you don't have a score bug on your screen, let people know what the score is going on, right? Let people know what's happening.
Yeah.
But it's also, rugby is one of those things. It's a great opportunity for people who want to get into broadcast and communications and all those things to test themselves out. Naira goes a lot on ESPN Plus.
Yeah.
So does some other programs. Iona Men do that a lot. But I'll also point out, hopefully this is not secret, but the number 1 viewed rugby game on the Rugby Network in 2023 was Cal versus Navy.
Wow.
Great game.
Great game, fantastic game. But the collegiate alliances and the collegiate interest, I think the Rugby Network saw that and said, "Hey, wait a second. When you've got the right matchup, obviously, you can get a lot of people watching." And I think that can be harnessed by somebody like the Rugby Network in a really positive way.
No, Alex, I want to it's similar, right? So you obviously cover college very well. You also
Yeah.
cover high school. So part of what will improve the level of competition in college, right, is that pathway to college. So in all your research and what you've seen, in person, how would you rate the quality of maybe high school programs across the country here in the U.S.?
Yeah, it's up and down. There are some that are terrific, that are extremely well coached, and you can see that in the numbers. I've got a list of the top 100 high school programs, and you've got programs with hundreds of kids, especially those club programs where a kid can just choose. I'm going to go to this club or that club, and they're attracted by great coaches and a great culture. At the very highest level, it's really good. At the very lowest level, it's participatory.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I should drink that Georgian wine, be able to pronounce words. That's great. And I'm all for participation. It's in that middle group where people think they're good, but actually what you need is like 3 or 4 more coaches and stuff like that. And look, I'm coaching it. I'm helping coach at St. Ignatius in Cleveland. Yeah. I'm one of 16 coaches.
Wow.
Why are there 16 coaches there? Well, because it's a fantastic program. It's really easy to just show up, and the kids are there. They walk from their classes. They walk across the street, and they're at the field ready to practice. And so it's really easy and really enjoyable because of that. And then that develops a really good program that has 170 kids in it. It's possible, but it takes a lot of work to get into that situation.
Yeah. So Alex, here in Mass, I don't know where you are laterally with me, but here in Mass, rugby is recognized by MIA, which is the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association. So how many states do you reckon recognize high school sports, through the governing bodies in the states, recognize as a varsity level program?
Maryland does, with a very small private school competition, which doesn't include, to be perfectly honest, the strongest teams in the region. Mm-hmm. Southern California, they're working on it. They call it the SCIRF. They're basically behaving as if they're a member of the California Interscholastic Sports Federation. Yeah. But they're not, they're trying to sort of not fake it till they make it, but behave that way until they make it. It's fairly rare. And one of the things, Massachusetts is great, and they're producing great players. And I think the competition, especially at the highest level, is good, really good. Belmont High School doing very well in boys and girls, but they don't really tour. Those like, hey, you know what? We're going to go down to DC and we're going to play Georgetown Prep and St. John's and Gonzaga. They just don't do that. And the thing is, that's very rugby to do that, isn't it? How great would that be to actually do that? So you do trade off those things, which is a little bit like, So because of that, we don't see them in quite the same context.
Right.
We don't see them at the high school national, stuff like that. But then again, if somebody involved in Massachusetts then gets talking to, and I should mention, New York, the Catholic League in New York is starting to embrace rugby. That's huge because the Catholic League of schools in the New York metro area is massive. So then that's another thing that sort of bolsters it and gives it a little bit of legitimacy. You get a letter, you get a rugby letter on your Letterman jacket. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I forget which team it was. It wasn't St. John's Prep. Maybe Boston College High up here. They were trying to do matches outside of Mass, maybe Connecticut at least, or get down to New York. And my understanding was it was being held back because of their involvement with the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association. Because outside of the states, they have no control. Maybe insurance issues. I don't know what it is. But you're right. It would be nice if there was more of a traveling issue, and maybe that is the problem with being recognized now as a state level varsity program. Maybe those are the restrictions of it. Would it not?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. You know, at the same time, I mean, Massachusetts is a pretty small state. You would think.
Yeah.
They'd have, you know, other sports would have to play. I mean, like that move actually left Bishop Hendrick and a little bit in limbo. They're in Rhode Island, and like, well, there's no league in Rhode Island.
There's nothing. Yeah.
We were playing Massachusetts teams, and now they cobbled together a schedule that's a little bit different. But I mean, some great players have come out of Bishop Hendrick, and I still think they're sort of just like trying to figure that out.
Well, you know, I was telling Fitzy earlier that I was going to lean on him for most of the questions because he knows a lot more about the college scene than me, but I haven't jumped all over him. So, Fitzy, got anything to share?
Yeah, Alex, I've got one more question, but first,
Yes,
you
sir.
said St. Ignatius, a name popped into my head. Nick DiPietro?
Yes, Nick is a lot of fun. Nick, absolutely, and is very, very knowledgeable about rugby and is very heavily involved with the varsity team. I'm an assistant coach to the freshmen. Just want to stress that's where I am on the pecking order. But I see Nick all the time. He's a lot of fun.
Nick and I, we both went to American University. We played on the club team there, but I was a couple of years ahead of him. But we played in a few alumni games together. But he's a good guy. But I had to ask the question because you've probably watched thousands of highlight tapes. You got to give us the do's and don'ts of a good highlight tape.
Okay.
You were ready for this one.
If you are a prop, throw out like 90% of your highlights and just show scrums and lineouts and defense. That's all we care about.
No,
if you are a back, show yourself making open field tackles and making passes that people actually catch. Rather than, okay, look, we can see you beat 2 or 3 guys in a phone booth and off you go. We don't need to see those last 15 seconds of you jogging in to score a try. I see a lot of scrum half highlights that are from sevens where the guy's, again, making a big break. Like, no, let's see you make 50 passes, different lengths, left hand and right hand. And let's see a sequence where you're at the ruck, then you make the next ruck, then you make the next ruck, then you make the next ruck, and you're following a multi-phase movement. Even if that doesn't result in a try, nobody cares about that. What they care about is that you have the fitness and the skill set to be able to continue that attack until, of course, your wing drops the ball when he has an open run to the try zone, because that's the way it goes. Those are key things. I think what your main role as a big time player, as a lock, I mean, you're going to be lifting in the lineup. You're going to be pushing in the scrum. You're going to be knocking people on their backs at the fringe of the ruck. Let's see it. Let's see you go through 3 guys to score a try from 2 meters out, rather than from, somebody slips over and you go run through. And let's not worry about that. Let's see you stay low, great body position, all those things. Those would be my pieces of advice.
Well, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back to my 1998 tapes and submit my my reel for the 2024 draft.
See, all my tapes would have been me doing something illegal at the bottom of a ruck for flankers. So.
Well, raking was legal back then. Yeah. Raking was legal.
Those were good times. That was a good time when that was legal, I have to say.
Yes.
I have a scar underneath my eyebrow from the illegal raking. But Alex, I got to ask you a follow-up question.
Yes.
Then is, do you listen to the volume up or down on a lot of these highlight tapes?
Oh my God, down. No volume whatsoever. I'll just put on some Led Zeppelin and watch it.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there any one song that has like surprised you where you're like, oh, actually that was a good selection?
Well, nothing that stuck in. If you get me talking about music today, I'm probably going to alienate most of my readership. But every now and then it sounds kind of like a lounge song, or just something really mellow. I'm like, Okay, something really mellow while this guy is just like busting through guys. Okay, all right.
Like a Glenn Hansard song.
You do you. That's fine. That's fine. You do you.
Some Irish limerick.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, listen, Alex. Listen, we've gone over our time with you, man. This has been a blast. Yeah. Thank you for like every time, almost every show, we're like, we should have another hour because we can keep going. Man. It's been a blast. Thank you so much for talking to us. We will definitely get you on here again and soon. And actually, I'm really happy you got on this time.
Yeah. Well, my phone works this time, so I'm a little bit more technologically adept, and so it'll continue to work better each time.
Nice.
You know, you just have to be patient with me, you know.
We all are. And also, Alex, how can listeners find you online? Where can we find your reports and all that?
So it's Goff, Goff Rugby Report. That's the URL. That's the Instagram. That's the Twitter. That's the Facebook. And if you want to be nice to me, go to goffrugbyreport.com/support-GRR. Yep. You could actually give me money, which would be nice. But you know, look, goffrugbyreport.com. I try to post 2 to 8 times a day on stuff, depending on the time of year, and rankings all the time, and player recognition is what I'm all about.
Well, I think Fitzy, I think your Rugby Morning newsletter, probably most of it's from his stuff, right?
I've got an entire college section. It's all Alex Goff.
Right.
Alex Goff section.
Well, I get all my insight from DiPietro, so it's all right.
All right, Alex, man, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot,
Let's
guys.
talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
All right, good night.
I enjoyed it. All right.
Yeah, same here, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, guys, everybody. You know what? Honestly, Fitzy, I don't know what we can talk about tonight. There was so much in the first half an hour, second half an hour. So unless you have anything else you want to share, I think it's time to go night-night.
Yeah, I think we gotta fly Alex out to Georgia, the country, to watch
with us
Georgian college rugby.
Ooh, I like it.
Out there.
We should have. You heard them. You heard the Georgia guys say we should go with them next time. So it's a U.S. Rugby Happy Hour live episode out of Tbilisi, and we'll have Alex Goff with us in the third seat doing the interviews. I think we should work on sponsorship. We might want to get someone like Starbucks or something. I don't know.
I want a chalice of cha-cha. That's what I want.
Oh, cha-cha. I feel like it's kind of like, what's that Fijian drink there? Kava.
Yes.
That might be the same thing. I'm not sure. All right, buddy. Let's call it a night. Everybody, thank you all so much for tuning in. It's been a blast. If you missed us, if you're listening now, if you missed half the show, the podcast will be live on Thursday. So check out the U.S. Rugby Happy Hour live podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great night, and tune in next week for our next show. Good night, everybody.